Hello, my name is Duarte Moraes, and as you know, I work with farmers across North Carolina, and we've heard that from many of you that there's interest in strategies to manage risk in the farm when receiving visitors. And so I'm with you today with a guest, Victoria, who is involved in agritourism, and we've known each other from when she was at NC State as a student. And so we're going to basically hear from her from a family farm that is very involved in agritourism, how they go about managing risk and insurance. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you, Victoria, and we'll be hearing you.
Thank you, Duarte. Like Duarte said, my name is Victoria. I had the pleasure of working with Duarte and People First Tourism Lab while I was a student at NC State. I am now part of the fourth generation at Patterson Farm Inc. and Patterson Farm Market and Tours. We are a fruit and vegetable farm. We also have an agritourism division. So we have over the several generations learned to diversify both in the crops we grow and the activities and offerings that we offer from field trips to public events. So look forward to talking with you guys today. So we'll be sharing some common risks that are found in agritourism farms, and these risks are pulled both from my experience with my family's farm as well as from talking with other farmers and kind of networking. So we'll go ahead and dive into those. The first risk that I've identified, I would consider as an environmental risk. So, with these, we're thinking about anything weather related, such as a pop up thunderstorm if you're having an event, or if you have anything in the summertime when it can be really hot, you can always have like a risk of guests getting overheated. So, that would I consider be an environmental risk. Thinking about the unique landscape of your farm, there could be some things around your farm that could be more dangerous than others. For example, we have several irrigation ponds around our farm, which are a beautiful part of our landscape, but can be a risk if guests, venture a little too close. So that's something to consider is any kind of thing in your landscape that might be a risk to guests. We also have to consider food safety as an environmental risk with our farm being a production farm with wholesale fruit and vegetable as well. And then a big one that happens with us, I would say, is bee stings. So that's something that if you're used to being out in the country and being outside, you might not think of as often, but when you have guests, especially if you're having an event with flowers or sugary ciders or anything like that, bees can be a challenge for guests as well. Another one that we've identified, and this kind of goes along with the landscape of your farm, is just slips, trips, and falls. I don't know about you guys, but our farm it's a very outdoor rural landscape. And while there's a lot of beauty in the natural environment, we don't have paved landscape sidewalks and things like that. So when we have our pick your own fruits and vegetables, like our strawberries, we use raised plastic beds and guests have to step over those. So they could, potentially be a hazard of tripping or falling in the field or even in the parking lot. Our parking lots are gravel rather than paved. So just kind of considering those different uneven or potentially slippery surfaces around your farm, and kind of keeping an eye out for, oh, I might be used to this little tree branch being here, but would a guest know to step over it kind of thing. So moving along, another big one that we consider with our farm is any animal visitor interactions. So of course, animals, especially baby animals, are such a huge pull to bring guests out to your farm, and everyone loves interacting with animals. So definitely can see the appeal in including that with an agritourism activity. But some things to consider when offering interactions with animals and your guest are going to be the safety of both the animal and your guest. So we follow a lot of safety rules in our barnyard, and I do have a picture of some of our rules, but we ask for things like people not to bring food or beverage into the barn. We try to ask people not to like use pacifiers or anything where they're going to be putting their hands towards their mouths between when they've started feeding our animals and before when they've washed their hands. So we try to be pretty informative with these rules with our guests to make sure that they're all following the safety rules. We also have these little kind of pipes where we pour the food in so the guests are not using their hands to feed the animals directly. They're just pouring the feed down the tubes. This helps in a couple ways. The guests are not, the animals not able to eat directly out of their hand, which can also eliminate any kind of chance of an accidental nibble or bite. But also, you know, we have some animals that may not need, they may be on a special diet or may not need that kind of food. So we're able to really kind of control what animals are able to be fed on what day. Then the biggest thing with our barnyard experience is just really emphasizing the hand washing. So we have hand sanitizer stations mounted throughout the barn. And then when you exit the barn, we have a hand washing station both right there at the barn, or we also have one near our restrooms. And so we make sure that, especially if it's a field trip group or something like that, we make sure that everyone goes through the hand washing station before they go to their next activity. And that just helps eliminate the risk of, you know, kind of E. coli or other, you know, germs that can be found in a barn. Another risk that you might want to consider is I'm going to categorize as just equipment hazards. So with being a working farm, you might have pieces of equipment laying around your farm that you're used to seeing, and you know the inherent risk of those, but guests may not be as familiar with them and may be curious about those things. So I do have pictured below like a tractor that guests may want to get close to or even take pictures on or something. So just thinking about some of the equipment that you have around your farm and maybe how you can help safeguard those kinds of equipments from if you're inviting guests. Additionally, you may have attractions or offerings on your farm that include equipment. A big one for us would be our hay rides. So, you know, although that's a scheduled and prepared for activity, there's also just safety checks that we have to do when we're loading guests onto the wagon, when we're helping them off the wagon, and rules that we share, such as, you know, please stay seated during the wagon ride. Please don't put your chin on the rail because we could go over a bump, things like that. So if there's any kind of attraction that includes equipment. And then finally, the middle picture that I have is if you're offering any food, there may be hazards associated along with that equipment, such as if you're having a grill or fryers for something like donuts, making sure that you have the proper safety things in place, such as fire extinguishers, fire blankets, and that you're prepared for any kind of thing that can happen when you're operating that kind of equipment.
Thank you so much, Victoria. So that's kind of some words for you to think about the types of risks that might affect your operation. I wanted to take a second just to bring your attention to a few concepts that kind of help understand, you know, what are you liable for, and how you protect yourself from liability. And essentially, I'll let you later, you know, get the notes. You can reach out for a PDF copy, reach me out to me for a PDF copy. Um, but the key thing is that every industry has a set of standards, a set of best practices. And that's true with agritourism. And so in agritourism, there's a set of best practices on how to protect the safety of your visitors. And those are not necessarily, at least as far as I know, written somewhere that so you can just study them. They are always evolving and they are, you know, managed or they're like shaped by the best operations in the area or in your region. And so what we have next is that Victoria is going to share with all of us the way in which her family tries to ensure and manage the risk of her, you know, involved in her visitors so that they That way, she's going to give you a sense of at least what their feeling is, what their sense is for the best practices in the industry. And that might be a good place for you to start. And then going to meetings, networking meetings, so you can be in the know of these kinds of practices would help you then think of ways to meet it. All right. So here, back to you, Victoria.
Thank you, Duarte. So, like Duarte said, I'll be sharing just some of the ways that our farm has over the years learned to try to help manage risk and keep things as safe as possible when we're welcoming visitors. So, a really big piece for us is employee training. So, we have a few different things we do alongside with our training, in addition to, of course, training them on how to do the job. We think it's really important to go over specific safety policies. So some of these things are things that have happened on our farm or are things that we think potentially could happen on our farm. So we've developed certain scenarios for topics such as if a child becomes separated from their parents and their parents aren't able to locate them, what do we do as a farm to help unify them, communicate that issue and everything like that with our staff? We also have a specific procedure we go over with all of our staff for, I'll share later that we have levels of incidents. We have tiers 1, 2, and 3. So if we had to call 911, that would be the highest tier of an incident that would happen. So we go over with all of our employees not only how to call 911, but when it's appropriate to do so with those levels of incidents. And one tip that we have learned over the years is we give all of our staff a staff t-shirt, and we actually have our address listed on the back of the t-shirt so that if in that moment there is an emergency, you're able to just turn your peer around and say, can I read the address off the back of your shirt? So in addition to that, with our training, we do go over the locations of all of our first aid kits and our fire extinguishers on our premise, make sure that they are aware of where those items are located. And then another piece that we're working towards this year is having training videos for different roles that once they complete the video and take a quiz, they'll get a certificate. And so that really, we think, will help make sure that training is even more streamlined, consistently communicated across all staff, as well as that documentation piece of having a certificate that this employee has completed this training. So another piece that we are very big on is checklist. So both on our wholesale and shipping part of the farm, as well as our agritourism operation, we utilize checklists. So over at our wholesale operation, we primarily use checklists because of our food safety requirements. We are audited annually. And so with that, we use a lot of pen and paper and clipboard checklists. So it's part of my job during our harvesting and growing season to go around daily and make sure that all of these checklist items have been completed, sign off on them as a manager, and then turn them into our food safety coordinator. So that's like a very relatively low tech way that you can implement a checklist on your farm. Over at our agritourism division, we do an electronic checklist. So we use an app over there called 7 Shifts, and that is how we schedule and onboard our employees there, as well as utilize a checklist feature. So there's different ways you can do it, just depending on how involved you want to be. I will say that the 7 Shifts version is it's like a subscription platform. There's another one similar that we've used in the past called Jolt that offers checklist as well. But if you wanted to create your own free version, you could probably do it with like a Google form. The really big benefit for us with the checklist, especially when it comes to welcoming visitors, is not only are we able to, as managers, see what has been completed so far each day, the electronic version also gives us a reminder that says, heads up, these items haven't been completed yet, so you can go around and make sure that the staff are doing the correct procedures. But also it's a really important documentation piece for if there was an incident on your farm, for example, you would have that record of, well, we did all of these things on our safety checklist that day in regards to this attraction, especially because if something happens, sometimes it may take a few months for you to get to the courtroom or whatever the situation is. And it might be hard for you to remember step by step what you did that day. So having that documentation, I think, really helps protect you as the farmer. Another great resource that we utilize, and I would recommend to everybody that has visitors on their farm, is the North Carolina Agritourism Liability Act signage. So these I have heard to post at your entrance as well as at every attraction. I've also heard to have at least two of them. So we have more than two. I don't know that we have them at every single attraction on the farm, but I think just for coverage, it's important to post them as many places as you feasibly can. So I have included a link here to the North Carolina Agritourism Networking Association's website. You can purchase these signs directly from them. You can join as a member. They have a membership program for networking and things like that, but you also do not have to be a member if you just want to purchase signs through them. So I suggest purchasing the signs through this organization because there are certain rules about the font size, the font you use, the size of the sign, and things like that. So ordering from here, I think, is a way to ensure that you've got the wording correctly and everything is in compliance with that. Another thing we do is with this liability verbiage with the Agritourism Liability Act is we include it also on our online tickets. So we sell tickets online from our farm, and we just have this verbiage copy and pasted into the terms and conditions. And we do require that guests they acknowledge that they have read and agreed to the terms. So we just think that that's another way to, inform them that there are inherent risks of coming out to a farm, as well as just another potential piece of coverage for you as the farm owner. So next I'll share a little bit about emergency preparedness. So I alluded to this earlier when I was discussing about the severity levels. So, and I'll share in the next slide a great resource that we use to come up with these procedures. So this kind of combines the staff training with this protocol as well. But we go over this at our staff training and we discuss with our staff how to assess each situation to determine if it's a level 1, a level 2, or a level 3 incident. And we go over with what to do with each one. So like a level 1 incident might be like a very small, like scraped knee where you might just need to pass the guest a Band-Aid and maybe an ice pack if they will make them feel better. But there's not much further action taken. All the way up to a level 3 incident would be where you're probably having to call in emergency personnel. So I think it's really great tool to have these emergency preparedness plans for your staff, especially if your staff might be seasonal or it might be hard to, keep them informed about all the policies. We do have these laminated and we have a copy at every attraction. So on the next slide, I'll share with you the resource that we use to come up with these. This is actually from an agritourism ready handbook from Ohio State University. So if you click this link, it will take you to a workbook that you can fill in all the information specific to your farm. It'll ask for like contact information for local authorities, farm owners, managers, and then there's just some other great things with that you can fill in. And some things to consider with this plan are like a map of your property, where the fire extinguishers are located, what to do if a child is locked in a car. One thing we do at our training is if a child is separated from their parent. So I think it's just a really good framework. It's something that you could take home and do, maybe on a rainy day or something. So this is another really important piece with our risk management plan. So regardless of what level of incident that happens on the farm is, whether it's a scraped knee all the way up to a level 3, we always fill out an incident report. So we keep these incident reports located at every first aid station, along with a pen and a clipboard. And we train all of our employees on how to fill them out. So basically, this is just a piece of documentation that, you're able to write down exactly what day this happened, what time, where was the person injured, both on their body and where on your farm did it happen. It asks for even like what were the weather conditions the day of the event, and things like that. So this is just something that we do. We fill the incident report out. We also turn that incident report in to our office manager. And we have somebody with our staff typically call the next day to follow up with the guests just to check on them. And then we keep these filed for, I would have to check on the amount of time that we keep them filed, but it's just another piece of documentation that helps protect you and helps it be clear exactly what happened, in case you ever are having to turn in information over to your insurance, for example.
Thanks, Victoria. This is a really good resource, in particular through talking to you and in other interactions. Having records is a crucial thing to do in risk management. So this is a great resource. You all can look at these, image on the slide and mimic it, or look up online examples of incident reports. And we highly, highly recommend that you begin, taking these approach. Very good. All right. And then, it's always, I've tried before to get information about insurance and options for farmers, and it's difficult. Not insurance companies sometimes don't answer, but we thought we would take the opportunity to have Victoria with us to hear about how her family navigates insurance. So, Victoria, the best for last.
Yeah,
Mhm.
thank you. So, there are a lot of options when it comes to insurance. I do know that we have used several different carriers over the past. The company we currently are with is called Westfield Insurance. I have the link here as well to their website. And the agent that we have is AJ Gallagher. Something to consider when you're looking for your insurance, or if you already have insurance, something that you can add to your interaction with your insurance agent is asking them to conduct an annual risk assessment. This is something that we do each year at our farm. It's a scheduled visit where our agent will come out and they will go around your farm and they will document, any recommendations that they see. So for us on our wholesale side, they can check for OSHA potential violations or recommendations in accordance with OSHA guidelines, as well as we have them go to our agritourism division and they look around there as well. And they offer us a very detailed report where they can tell us, exactly what the potential risk is and steps we can do to mitigate it. So we have utilized that for several years. We really like that feature because it helps us, improve, especially where guests may be coming to visit. One thing I wanted to note is that when you do this, it does stay with your agent and it's not sent to your carrier. So that your insurance company is doing this to benefit you. They're not going to do it and then rack up your premium. So it does stay within your agent to help you as a business be more safe. With our usage of Westfield Insurance, they do offer like agribusiness coverage. They offer automobile coverage. They also have like general liability and workers' compensation coverage. So I did want to be sure to notate, especially if you have employees, to be sure you have workers' comp insurance as well, in addition to your general liability insurance.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing all of this, Victoria. So everyone, in the video, the links are not working, but you should be able to reach out to me In this slide, there's my email. If you just look up People First Tourism Lab, you'll find me, and I'm happy to send you the PDF copies of this. And I'll continue to work with Laura in Rutherford County to organize these kind of trainings. So also let me know what topics you're curious about, and we will have more information for you. Thanks again, Victoria.
Thank you.